Hammer-ons and pull-offs are one of the first kind of, bits of advanced guitar technique that a lot of my students kind of encounter. And it's something that's really fundamental to being able to play, cool legato lines, play quicker. And also it's just a wonderful technique to have under your fingers for playing a lot of different genres of music. So in today's video, I wanted to give you some tips and practical advice on executing hammer-ons and pull-offs that are going to help you start playing the music you love and also just have a less frustrating time with the guitar. So the overarching principle that I kind of want to share that's going to make these techniques a lot easier to kind of seep into your fingers is that heavy is slow and light is fast. And this is something that tends to kind of blow my students away when I first get them to do it. So say you were trying to do a hammer-on, let's say we're going from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret of our high E string, and we're going something like that. What a lot of my students will try to do is they'll try to just use all of the force that they have in their ring finger to smack it on to that 5th fret as mightily as they can. And the thing that happens when you try to go super hard rather than going fast is that when you go hard, you end up actually kind of tensing up and moving slower. And that's what I mean by light is fast. You want to actually be quick, because if you think about it, when you're doing a hammer-on, what you're essentially doing is you're picking one note and then you're trying to make another note happen while preserving as much of the previous note as you can. And so a big part of getting this right is trying to get your finger to snap. I personally am biased because I have 2 wonderful cats who are both the banes of my existence and the loves of my life. But going through that, I always use the analogy of you want to be like a cat chasing a laser pointer, and they shoot their paw out really quick. So rather than doing this really big, heavy, and aggressive motion, you want to be light and you want to be quick. Because we want, when we do a hammer-on, we're basically trying to preserve as much energy going into the string from the previous note. We want to carry that energy to our new note when we hammer onto it. And so by being quick, it's actually going to get you there much quicker, much cleaner than it is if you try to just throw all of your weight into the neck. And then the second thing that I'll say about kind of hammer-ons with this is that you also want to be really on top of your finger placement. A lot of my students seem to think that, if they hit the string hard enough or whatever it may be, that's going to be what gives them the new note. And you can hit the string as hard as you like, but if your finger is not in a very good place when it's snapping into place, it's not going to do much for you, because we ideally want our finger. I always tell my students the ideal finger placement is if you cut your fret in half, you want to be on the rightmost half of that cut. So when I'm doing that 3rd fret to 5th fret hammer-on, I'll zoom in and post here and do this a couple times. But you'll see that where my finger is landing is almost right in line with that fret, and that's just ensuring that when my finger snaps into place, again, I'm not using a ton of force. I'm trying to get in really quickly and decisively, and I'm also trying to make sure that my finger is placed in a beneficial spot so that it'll actually hold that note, essentially. Now, let's talk a little bit about pull-offs, because these are one that tend to kick my students' butt a little bit, in that they'll sit there and they'll go, and they get nothing out of it. And this is one, again, where I would say you want to be quick. The trick is moving as quickly and decisively as you can. But the other thing that's going to help your pull-offs more than anything is this concept where I almost sometimes think about my fingers on my left hand as being my legs. I can shift weight kind of leg to leg. And the trick I find to doing a pull-off, beyond just doing it fast, is to have, when I put my finger, I'll even do this with my pinky so that you can see it nice and up close, but I'll zoom in here. What I think when I do these pull-offs is I'm actually, and again, I'll zoom in, editor Matt, but I'm actually shifting my finger so that I'm fretting the note, but I'm a little bit more on this side of the string rather than being dead center. And then when I go to do the pull-off, I'll shift my finger a little bit forward, and then I'll take it away. And the trick to doing this is that it gets your weight on the side of the string, so you're dragging more of your finger through it. And again, the trick to getting really good pull-offs in that regard is getting your weight shifted and then taking your finger away. A lot of my students try to do these big dramatic, kind of almost like if they were strumming, but with their left hand. And that can work in certain situations, but a lot of the time I think it actually makes it harder to do, because then you pull away way further than you want to be, and it's just going to cause a bunch of problems for getting your left hand back in place. So the trick is, again, kind of shifting your weight forward and then getting your finger out of the way as quickly as possible. Because again, the core principle of both hammer-ons and pull-offs is you're trying to preserve as much of the original vibration in the string as possible. And so by shifting your weight up and getting away fast, that's a really good way to do it. And now to close off the video, I'm going to share with you a fantastic little exercise to work on this. And we're just going to use, for this example, I'm going to use the A minor pentatonic scale, because if any of my students coming to me with what scales they know is any good sample size, it's one that probably most of the people watching this video will be familiar with, is that A minor pentatonic scale. And what we're going to do, the pentatonic scale is a fantastic way to work on not our arpeggios, sorry, to work on our legato technique, because when we go through it, there's 2 notes on every string. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick 1 note per string. So as I go up, I'm going to go 5, hammer on my pinky, and again, I'm trying to just get it in quickly, and my finger placement, if you look at it, is great. It's on that kind of upper bit. I'm going to do this exercise once, and I'll zoom in on the fretboard when I do. But essentially what you do is you play 1 octave of the scale, and you pick the first note, and then you hammer on the second. So here, nice and cropped in, is what that looks like. Now when we go descending down the scale, we're going to do the same thing in reverse. So now we're doing pull-offs, and we're going to go... And you'll notice when I'm doing that, again, I'm not doing these huge dramatic pulls. I'm just trying to shift my weight on my left hand on the other end of the string, and then release it as quickly as possible. And by doing that, we're preserving, again, as much energy into the string as possible. So here's me doing the scale up and down one more time. I'm going to do it a little bit quicker, but I will zoom back in on my left hand so you can watch what's going on. So that is a fantastic exercise to start working on your legato. And the one other thing that I will say about this is, when you're practicing this, you want to try as much as is possible to keep things level and keep things balanced, because this is really, really easy to get into this kind of territory where you're going, where you get this kind of loping feel. You don't want it to sound like that. You want it to sound level and smooth, just like you're going, where it's totally level, totally balanced, just going throughout. So anyways, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It truly helps me out more than you could know. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, there's a link to get in touch with me down in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. If you're looking for a way to support me in the free educational content that I post here, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which is also linked down in the description. All of my patrons get early access to videos, as well as cool behind-the-scenes sneak peeks, as well as, glimpses into things that I don't share anywhere else. So I'd love to see you over there. Another great way to support me and what I'm up to is to check out either my ebook or my video courses, which are linked down in the description. It's a great way to get some more in-depth educational content from me than I can go into in a 10 to 15 minute YouTube video. And last but not least, I have new videos coming out every single week, so I hope I'll see you in the next one. And until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.